but you see him on the Garmin. You drop the Finesse TRD down there, and that's one that I should have weighed in on game day, but I didn't. But the TRD is phenomenal on these guys right here. Hey everybody, Bassmaster Elite Series Pro Mark Daniels Jr. We just wrapped up the first Elite event here on my home lake, right in my backyard. Beautiful Lake Martin out of Alexander City. Man, it was a really good week. You know, I ended up finishing in 24th place. I can't complain at all. Of course, I would have liked to have done better, but the reality was I never really had the bites to separate myself and get into that top 12 cut. But I caught plenty of fish. I think according to Bass Track, I think I caught 23 the first day, 22 the second day. Of course, on day 3, I had a little bit of a struggle, and I think I only caught maybe 10 or 11 fish, but I was still fortunate enough to catch 10 pounds, 12 ounces, and you know, I fell back 2 places, but when it was all said and done, 24th place, great points. I'm stoked about that. I'm happy, no complaints, man. So let's jump into the tackle that I used this week out here on Lake Martin, and in the way that I fished. And I'll start out by telling you guys, you know, I spent quite a bit of time up here pre-practicing before the cutoff, and I did a lot of idling around, a lot of looking for these bait balls and fish that were relating to bait and structure. And I utilized my Garmin electronics like I always do, and I did a lot of idling, a lot of time sitting down in the seat in the cockpit, idling around with that Mercury Marine engine, looking for them. And when I would find them, these fish would be anywhere from 40 feet to 60 feet, really deep, because that's where the bait was. You know, that's the first thing that I identified as I idled off the bank. As soon as I leave takeoff, the first thing I do is I make sure my units are running, and I'm looking immediately to see the depth range that the bait fish are using, because oftentimes the bass are going to be in that same depth range, and that's exactly what happened. So when I would find these bass on these deeper places in and around bait fish, I was vertical fishing using my Panoptics and my 2D sonar on my Garmin's, and I was using 3 different baits, and I'll take you guys through these 3 baits one by one. My setup for that: Seagar 15-pound braid to an 8-pound Seagar Tatsu leader. One of 3 baits that I would drop on them would be this guy right here. That is just a jig head, 3/8 ounce jig head with a Z-Man Streak fluke style bait. It's called a Streak 3.75, so it's 3.75 inches, almost 4 inches, but this is a great bait fish imitator. It looks just like the little shad that they're down there eating, and I could drop this down to them and get them to react a lot of times video game fishing on my graphs, and I caught a lot of fish on that this week. A lot of those fish would get stubborn though. They would go, you know, I've seen that before. There's other boats in the area. I shared some areas with some other guys, and so I felt like a little bit of the pressure would start to set in on these fish. And so then I started alternating and dropping down in line size and just scaling back a little bit. And that's where this guy right here came in, and this is the Z-Man's Finesse TRD. This bait right here is absolutely bad to the bone. I don't know what it is about it. It's super small and compact, but those spotted bass this week, they absolutely love this thing. They had to have it. My setup for this was a little bit different. I took it back a little bit, and I went with a medium light action rod. And the reason for that is because they weren't really hitting the bait really hard. A lot of times you would just have to wait for your rod tip to load just a little bit, and that would be my strike indication that I had a bite, and then I would set the hook. Again, 15-pound Seagar smackdown braid, but I went with a 6-pound Tatsu leader on this. I mean, like I said, I really scaled back, and I really went finesse with this setup using the TRD, and I think I caught the vast majority of the fish that I weighed in on this bait right here. And I rotated it 2 different colors. So this one right here was my favorite. This is green pumpkin goby. I caught a lot of fish on it, but just like the streaks, I think sometimes they would get a little bit accustomed to seeing that color. Then I would switch out, and I'd sometimes drop down another color called the deal. And this has more of a bait fish hue to it, a little bit of blue, a little bit of purple, a little bit of white, a little glimmer in it. It looks more like an actual bait fish. And don't ask me why on the green pumpkin goby it's not even shad colored, but I think that worked toward my benefit, just giving them something different to key on. You know, it separated the bait from the surrounding bait fish, and man, they loved it, you know. So that was my mainstay. On day 3, really tough on me. I only had 10 bites. Late in the day, I made a decision with 20 minutes to go that absolutely saved my tournament and allowed me to only fall back 2 places as opposed to Lord knows where, because I was really struggling that day. The last 20 minutes, the wind started blowing a little bit, overcast set in, it was perfect reaction bait weather, and I just could not figure out why these deep fish didn't want to bite, you know. And I kept pushing it, kept pushing it, kept pushing it. I caught me 5, but they were smaller ones, you know. So I went shallow for 20 minutes, and the very first place I pulled up on, I catch a 2 1/4 on my second cast, throwing a mega bass jerkbait, Vision 110. I think that's called chartreuse pearl in color, and boom, catch a 2 1/4. Jumps me up tremendously. I put that fish in a box. I shoot across this pocket with 7 minutes to go before I got to run back to weigh in. And the very next point I come to, I throw that jerkbait out and I hit it a couple times. Doom, doom, slack line it. Boom, another one. A 2 pound, a little bit better than 2. Almost a 2 1/4. And on this lake, on Lake Martin, on day 3, those things were gold. And so that's what really saved my tournament, were those last 2 fish I caught on this jerkbait. One other key thing I'll note about the jerkbait, I changed the hooks out on all my jerkbaits. And this is a new hook by owner. It's called an ST38. This bad boy is a cross between an EWG and a round bend. So it's like everything I've ever wanted in a treble hook. Extremely sharp, straight out of the pack. And that first one I caught, I had 1 hook in this fish. And I got nervous, I got in a rush, and I boat flipped this thing. But it held on with that 1 hook. I landed the bass, and I have to attribute that to these super sharp owner ST38 hooks. So you guys might want to give those a try. The line on the jerkbait, 12 pound Seagar Abrazex, and I'm throwing a 6-3-1 Cabela's Arachnid reel, and that's an awesome combination for jerking. So more or less, guys, that's my whole tournament, man. I didn't have a ton of rods on the deck this tournament. I kept it pretty simple. I had these 4 guys right here was my mainstay. I knew I was going to stay deep. I caught 12-8 on the first day deep, 10-15 deep, and pretty much all of my weight except for those 2 key keepers that came jerking at the end of the day on day 3. So there you guys have it, man. Thank you for following. I appreciate everybody that subscribed to my YouTube channel, as well as people that follow me on Facebook and Instagram. You guys stay tuned. There's going to be more. This event right here will have fish catches in it, so it should be pretty exciting. And I will see you guys at the next event. See you.